Let's talk about national security. It's very heartbreaking to see what is going on as far as national security is concerned, despite the efforts of government. Now, President Bola Tinubu has now directed Minister of Defense, the Chief of Defense Staff, the Service Chief, the Inspector General of Police, and the Director General of Department of State Services to track down and apprehend the perpetrators of the Kasumwandaji attack in Niger State. The attack saw over 30 people killed in a deadly attack by suspected terrorists at the Kasumwandaji market in a demo community located in Bogu local government area of Niger State. President Tinubu has now ordered the security agencies to ensure that the terrorists were swiftly brought to justice. It says the terrorists have retested actually the resolve of the Nigerian government and its people. They must therefore face the full consequence of their actions and their criminal actions. The president says no matter who they are and what their intent is, they must be hunted. In fact, an update to that story is the fact that the death toll has now moved from just 30 to about 55. That's what we got from our correspondent just before we came on air. So it is a very sad developing story. So let me bring in my guest. Given what is playing out in international politics, how can we strengthen our national politics, our national security so formidable? I'm sure you've been following international news. Maduro was the former Venezuelan president, if I can call him that now, is in the hands of the United States government over that incident, over that the raid that happened. When they picked him up, he's going to face narcotic-related charges and all of that. But let me bring in my guest, because there's an interplay of national sovereignty, geopolitics, and national security that is important to all of us. Commodore Promise Dapper is a retired naval officer. He joins us virtually from Port Harcourt, the River State capital. Commodore, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Good evening.
Also joining us is Professor David Awara. He's of the Department of International Relations and Strategic Studies, University of Lagos. Prof, thank you so much for coming on the program. Oh dear. Okay, maybe when we get Prof, we'll come to him. Commander, let's come to you in just a moment. Let's go from outside to what we're playing out. Now we're seeing that it looks like there's a new world order, because there are two broad conversations we're going to have today. One is national security. The other one has to do with politics with my next set of guests. Is the fact that some people are beginning to say that even national sovereignty in itself is no longer absolute. If the United States can get into Venezuela, just like what they did to Manuel Noriega in Panama in 1989, just literally making a mess of the Westphalian sovereignty of the 15th century in 1648. We now see that invasion, abduction, and is going to face justice. Now, there are so many nuances to it, so many arguments for and against this. But the new world order seems to be like the United Nations is just sitting down and watching, and these new powers, or these world powers, are executing actions based on what they call their convictions. But what do you make of what is playing out in geopolitics, and how should Nigeria begin to prepare itself, perhaps, in terms of its own national security? Because we're not far away from some of these things. It looks very far away, but we may not be far away if we don't build ourselves and be vigilant as much as possible.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, what is, like you said today, in the world order, in the international arena, the international system, what we are witnessing is a paradigm shift from the liberal world order, where multilateralism, international law holds sway, to the old order of realism, where the sovereignty, the security of the state is paramount, where might is right, where nations exert their superiority by their military might. And in that world order, we said that there is no central authority, that anarchism reigns supreme. So every nation is for himself. Every man must fight to defend himself. And that order is based primarily on your military capability. But if you observe, there was a gradual shift from that order to a state where nations begin to talk of human security, liberalism, building multilateral corporations where nations can come together to enforce a new world order. But all that is beginning to pine away as we see what is happening in the war. We saw the incident in Ukraine. Russia trying to bully Ukraine. We saw what's happening in Israel, Gaza, and today is the turn of Venezuela. Like you rightly said, we don't know whose turn it is next. So there's a shift from the liberal concept of international relations to the realist dimension, the realist strategy or theory in international relations, where nations, the security of nations are determined, the security of individuals are determined by security of nations. Because we saw that, we can see that under the liberal system, people, like even Nigeria, if you watch our security documents, emphasis is laid more on security of individuals. You hear what they talk about, a lot about human security, that resources must be voted more for the upkeep, for the economic well-being, medical well-being of the people. That if the people are well and happy, that the country will be secured. But we are seeing all that now have been thrown through the window, that unless a country, the sovereignty of a nation is secured, the people cannot be secured. We have seen presidents building fortresses for themselves and forgetting the security of the nation. Now it's becoming very clear that even the president cannot be secured unless the country itself is secured. There can be no secured individual unless the country is secured. So what does that tell us? That countries must begin to pay attention to national security. The frontiers of the nation must be secured. Until the frontier, the country is secured, the individual cannot be secured. And that has always been my position. And that's why I'm not a student of bread and butter politics or bread and butter security, that because there is hunger and that's why the country is not protected. Under the liberal concept, the attention of insecurity moves from outside to internal. People begin to see that security comes more from internal when the people are not happy, when the needs of the people are not taken care of. But we are beginning to see a new kind of security threat now that comes mainly from outside. And that one is more deadly. It gives no time to negotiate. So they just come pick whoever they want to pick. One strike of a cruise missile can just destroy the whole country and others. So to me, I think it's a wake-up call to nations that are not taking their national security seriously, nations that are not spending money on their national security, and Nigeria falls into that realm. Maybe later on, we'll try to do a small analysis, see our defense spending, see whether Nigeria is spending enough. Before we can begin to say whether Nigeria is secure or not, we'll ask ourselves if Nigeria is spending enough on security, and we'll do a little comparison to other African countries, especially the North African countries, for us to know where we are, what we are doing, what other nations are doing, then we'll know our expectations. Thank you so far.
No, Commodore, sometimes when we raise this kind of conversation, it looks very far away until it comes close to home. We are around the Gulf of Guinea. We're one of the Anglophone countries. We have Francophones and Anglophone countries on the continent, and the Gulf of Guinea is of interest to anyone who is interested in geopolitics because of the economy of oil. Venezuela, for instance, has the highest reserve in the world, but they produce barely as much as Nigeria does. Over 300 billion barrels of oil in their reserve, although their oil is high in sulfur, it's too thick, it's expensive, the economy is not really working as much for them with all the sanctions that has happened under Maduro. The next attention, we don't know whether it's the Gulf of Guinea or somewhere else, but you can see the interplay of the power guys. Some are even saying it's negotiated release or abduction or capture, whatever name you want to go by. But we're looking at it broadly from that end so that we will know how to put our own house in order. So let's come home, which is more important. As we speak right now, 55 persons have been confirmed dead. Why? Villagers, children, women, innocent people, because some suspected terrorists. Despite the statement of the president when he was presenting the budget, said this year there's no mercy. If you carry gun, you're an enemy of the state. If you go kill people, you're going to be in trouble. Then we are seeing just few days after in Niger State, 55 people dead just like that. What do you make of it?
Okay, thank you. It's very good anytime the president speaks. I like the president talking tough. But are we matching words with action? All this talk boils down to finance, resources. Like we said the last time, there must be a surge of resources if we are serious about dealing with national security. Now, look at a place like Niger State. What are the states doing? The last instance, 300 students were taken off from the school. And during one of the interviews I watched from one of the channels, They said these children were moved with motorcycle, bit by bit, blow by blow. They go and they come, they go and come. And through all those processes, there is no facility or infrastructure in the state, in the country that could picture them. Nobody knew which direction they went. Nobody knew who they were at tomorrow. And that finished, they negotiated their release, and we came back, nothing. And this is a new year. Nobody is talking about how could in a country, some group of individuals, not even outsiders, not even America, could just swoop on the people, pick whoever they want to pick, pack them together, take them to wherever they want to take them, and nobody knows. And the country is not thinking about that. What is wrong in a place like Nigeria to say every state capital must have a CCTV circuit as a starting point of security? What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? How much will it take every state to put a surveillance system in the state capital at least? Then from there, we begin to escalate to the local government areas. What will it cost for the federal government to put CCTV cameras on the highways? So that at least if you begin, like if they begin to even trace this, after they say happen, you trace them to a point, you can begin to say, okay, they went left or right, can begin to analyze they could be in social area or this area. But with all this happening in Nigeria for over 15 years, not one state capital in Nigeria has a surveillance system. The country has not made any improvement on the surveillance system. That today, if they carry anybody, we'll still be talking about tracking them, not showing mercy. It's not about talk. Now, let's come back to reality. We saw the last, if we take the last 3 years or so, 2024, 2025, and this 2025 appropriations. Now we'll see that though defense may seem to carry the bulk of the budget, but when you do an analysis of the budget, you will find out that over 80% of this budget is for overhead and personnel costs. Leaving sometime in 2023, you had less than 10% of the budget for capital. And this capital budget, 10%, you will still have infrastructure, buildings, barrack maintenance, and all those things that are 10%. So at the end of the day, you are having less than 10% or 5% of this budget we are talking about for acquisition of arms and all that. The same thing, if you look at today's, this 2026 budget, you have less than 20% of that budget for capital. And if you take out other things inside, you have less than 10% for ammunition and purchase of arms. For a country that is neck deep inside insecurity, if you compare with the North Africans, the past 3 years now, a country like Algeria has spent between $16 billion to 21. Their 2026 budget is going to about $21 billion for defense. Morocco has spent spending between $6 and $9 billion. Egypt is also spending in that region. How much is Nigeria spending? In the last 3 years, our defense budget has come to between 3 and 4 billion. With 4 billion was the highest that was in 2004 because it was reviewed upward. And out of these $4 billion, less than 10% of it is for purchase of arms.
Commodore, if I may come in for a moment, if you can hear me, Commodore. So what are we dealing with here? Yes. Because we need to be realistic as much as possible when it comes to the issues around spending and being able to, you know, man our security and be the best we can be in terms of protecting the lives and property of our people. The reality is that the government will always say there's a paucity of funds. So we have a budget of about $40 billion as we speak before the National Assembly. About $10 billion of that in dollars is going to debt servicing. But a chunk of it, which is the biggest allocation in terms of sector, is the defense, which is about 5.4. Which you have, I think you've talked about whether it's 3 point something or so billion dollars. So on one hand, is it a problem of prioritization or it's a problem of paucity of funds?
I think, purely speaking, it's a problem of prioritization. Because when any country comes under insecurity, the type of security challenges that we are having, which
oh dear. All right. We hope we can get the Commodore back. He's trying to make a very solid point. Commodore, can you hear me? Come on, if you can unmute your device so that we can hear you. For a moment, we were not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, fantastic. Please go ahead. We didn't hear what you were saying, so please can you just rephrase?
Okay. So what I'm saying that is issue of prioritization. Because when a nation comes under the kind of situation we do, there's what we call securitization. You securitize. And that is where security takes precedence over every other thing. Countries like Algeria that is not even facing the type of challenge we are facing are spending up to 10% of GDP on defense. So what are we talking about? Then we that we are neck deep in insecurity, we are spending less than 1% of our GDP in defense. And we have the luxury of building fancy projects, which we call legacy projects. In the country, when people are not safe, the country is not safe, and you dare to do projects, what project could be better than the security of the country? You build bridges, build flyover, build castle in the air. One cruise missile brings down everything. You wake up tomorrow, everything will be down. So to me, I think we must securitize. Securitization is the issue. Security comes before everything.
All right, Commodore, my apologies. Let me bring you my...
Individual cannot be safe. So government must move money and allocate a huge chunk of resources for defense of this country and the people.
Let me bring in my second guest. We've been trying to get him in, but due to network, Professor David is of the Department of International Relations and Strategic Studies, UNILAG. Prof, thank you for coming on the program. If you can unmute your device, Prof, so we can hear you, sir. Just unmute. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, fantastic. We've been waiting. So, Prof, we're trying to create a nexus between the dynamics of geopolitics, as we've seen it, and the need to strengthen our national security, because at the end of the day, it is what you do at home that matters the most on how you'll be seen from outside in. Unfortunately for Africa, we don't have nuclear powers to be able to come up on the table with the balance of terror in that sense. So our position on the table is quite limited. But let's talk about home and what we need to do. The Commander has been speaking about, I asked him a direct question, the reality of there's not much money in our coffers and the need to secure our people. Is it a question of prioritization, or we can admit there's positive funds? Where do you stand, Prof?
Well, I think the issue revolves more around prioritization, that is correct. But also judicious use of resources. We have so many problems. I heard the Commodore talk about human security. You need resources to be able to provide human security. Human security goes beyond protection from physical violence. It talks about taking care of the needs of the people, the basic needs of the people. You need resources to do that. And so if all the money goes into physical defense, then the human security he talked about will be impossible. So to my mind, two things, prioritizing. The defense needs to have more resources. But what is devoted to defense also needs to be judiciously utilized. We've seen, wastes. We've seen corruption, in the way defense budget has been administered. If all of those things are removed, we'll be able to do a lot better in terms of providing security for our people. I agree with the Commodore entirely that security is important. Section 14 of the Constitution, subsection 2, is very clear about that, that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. If there is no security, everything else, becomes irrelevant. So, those two things, prioritizing and judicious use of resources, because we don't have enough, really. You are just talking about $40 billion for 230 million people. That amount is infinitesimally small. So the government has to, juggle here and there to ensure that different sectors get enough so that the country can move on.
Prof, let me stay with you for a moment from the diplomatic end, as far as this is concerned. We've seen a fallout of failures around our region, resulting in increase and surge in insecurity in our country. So if we were to frame our foreign policy direction and tone, what should we be saying right now?
Well, you know, our foreign policy over the years has focused on Africa as the centerpiece. It has also focused on multilateralism, that is engaging with other countries of the world through international organizations. It has also focused on maintenance of global peace and security and support for it, which is why Nigeria has committed so much to peacekeeping. Of course, it has also focused on Pan-Africanism, and that is understandable considering the vastness of Nigeria's population on the African continent and the large number of people of black color in Nigeria. All of these have been cardinal issues in Nigeria's foreign policy. Of course, we have also had economic diplomacy, that is using diplomacy to advance economic interest. That was introduced, from the 80s. That has also been very important. So what needs to happen is we don't have any problems really with, the foreign policy objectives. It is the implementation now that has had issues. We have not been as vibrant. Some other African countries are saying that they are now more assertive than they used to be because Nigeria has been quiet. Yes, vibrancy, in the conduct of foreign policy is a major issue that needs to be, addressed. And then we also need, more stability at home, because at the end of the day, what the country is able to do abroad is determined by the conditions at home. When the economy is down, when infrastructure is mediocre, when there is instability and all of these things at home, there is not more a country can do in the pursuit of ambitious foreign policy objectives on the outside. So these are the things. And of course, we need to engage with other countries of the world so that there can be stability. And of course, Africa needs to come together. When Africa has done well at the international level, was always when Africa came together. African countries, 54 of them, are too small, too weak to be able to make an impact on their own. So when they come together and present a common front, we're able to achieve a lot. And Nigeria should be at the forefront of mobilizing African interests to be able to speak with one voice on the global scale. These are the things we need really to be able to pursue our objectives and fulfill them.
Let me take a Commodore. Commodore, as we begin to wind down, let's talk about what role the issue around the president has shown his resolve that state police has to be. It looks like it's going to be, given the fact that a lot of the party governors are now in his party. He has a good majority in the Senate and the House of Reps. So that looks like good to go. How far-reaching would that be? And the issue of border security, we've been talking about it. The former CDS, now Minister of Defense, has spoken about it, the issue of border security, because it feels to me that there are so many moving parts. The issue around national security and maintaining it at premium level to be able to make Nigerians feel very safe, it's not one way. There are hydra-headed issues that must be treated within those tentacles. What do you make of national border security and state police, and how can it help?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start with border security, like you said. We have said it like now. We have seen that the threat is moving not just only internal, where we talk about non-state actors and all that. We have transnational threats. The threat that's blighting Nigeria now, national security, is mostly transnational. Most of the people attacking us, like the resurgence of the Islamic State terrorists, they are grossly transnational. And if you don't fix border, you cannot make progress, because as we stand today, if you eliminate all the Boko Haram and all the insurgents in the country, just give them 1 month, they resurge. From outside the country, they regroup. And they will come back. So until you address the issue of border security, our borders must be encumbered. They must be walled. The greater part of it must be walled when you come under instances like that. I've given instances before. Nigeria is about 4,200 kilometer land borders. India is about 17,000 kilometers. It is fenced. Most of it are walled with security gadgets, with roads. The border, India's border with Bangladesh alone is 4,200, which is 100 kilometers more than Nigeria's border. It is fenced on the Indian side, fenced on the Bangladesh side. India has about over 200,000 border security men on that front alone. And this is how to secure a country. Since over 15 years ago, when we had the last trans-border attack in Mumbai, we have never had any such in India. Today, if you have a trans-border attack in India, it's like a taboo. And that didn't just come by wishful thinking. We saw in Israel during the second Intifada uprising when suicide bombers were crossing from Gaza into Jerusalem, bombing areas. They put up a wall, and that's from that day to today. 2,700 kilometers of the area between Morocco and the Polisario front and all those police wall and fenced. This is what works. So security,
all right, come on. Let me bring in the prof as we wind up. My apologies. Let me be prof. The same question: how much of state police, how much of border security can help us nip this in the bud? If you can do it in 1.5 minutes, sir.
State police will help because you know, just like all politics is local, all crime is also local. So if it is well organized, well managed, state police will help because it will help to deal with, you know, violence at the local level. What it calls for is maturity on the part of governors, such that, you know, it is not abused, because the fear has always been that it might be abused. But given the kind of security we have, security challenges we have at the moment, state police is just, you know, will be very useful when well managed, such that it will even help to prevent, you know, crime, because you know, it will be able to make possible to detect crime and prevent their occurrence before they break out, instead of waiting for, you know, police from very far away. So that is well noted, and that's well supported. And countries that have done well in maintaining security, you know, the policing at the local level has been a major contributor to all that. Then border security, yes, that is needed. Although, you know, we have always talked about having borderless border. It is better if we had that, but that is assuming that, you know, crime will not be, you know, as vast as we have had it now. But now we have crime that is multifaceted, you know, and transnational. And so, yeah, you know, manning the borders very well, maybe putting walls and all that. Whatever will make inflow of crime from another country to go down tremendously will be welcome. So to that extent, I agree with the Commodore that that is an option that we need to explore so as to prevent and minimize crime in the country as much as possible.
Professor David, our is advisor of the Department of International Relations and Strategic Studies, University of Lagos, Nigeria. Commodore Promise Dapa is a retired naval officer. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.